Hi, I'm John Fredrickson, and welcome to the ISTDP Institute. Now we'll take a look at another form of the defense of denial, denial per se. What do we mean by denial per se? With denial per se, the patient denies reality despite a lot of evidence to the contrary. When someone uses this kind of denial, simply remind the patient of his denial and the reality he denies. Don't argue with the patient. Let the reminders of reality do the work for you. In this vignette, a patient mourning the recent death of his wife reports that he plans to visit a woman who enjoys bondage and discipline, a form of sadomasochistic enactment. And the patient says, "I know when I go to see her that either I'll feel guilty for going or she'll make me feel shitty." So I said, "I want to go visit a woman who makes me feel guilty and shitty." The patient said, "I find her very interesting." Therapist, "I'm very interested in a woman who makes me feel guilty and shitty." Patient, "I know I'll feel worse about myself." Therapist, "I want to meet a woman who will make me feel worse about myself." And the patient laughed. He said, "I know it sounds crazy. I know she'll either reject me or run away from me." Therapist, "I want a woman to reject me or run away from me." Patient, It is a distraction from all the sadness over Anne's death. Therapist, "I want a woman to reject me so I don't have to face the sadness over Anne's leaving me through death." And the patient began to cry. Now, let's walk through that vignette so you understand the principles of intervening with denial per se. So we're going to go through it again. Again, the patient started out by saying, "I know when I go to see her that either I'll feel shitty for going or she'll make me feel shitty." Therapist, "I want to go visit a woman who makes me feel guilty and shitty." Now, in this intervention, I mirror the contradiction between what he says he wants to do and what he says he will feel. Often, patients don't hear these contradictions unless we reflect back to them what they said. Now, let's go to his next response. He says, "I find her very interesting." That's his defense, denial of who he is meeting and why. So I mirror the contradiction between what he says and what he will feel. So I say, "I'm very interested in a woman who makes me feel guilty and shitty." The patient responds, "I know I'll feel worse about myself." Now you notice he is still not facing his denial. So again, mirror the contradiction between what he wants and what he will feel. I say to him, "I want to meet a woman who will make me feel worse about myself." Now the patient laughs. He says, "I know it sounds crazy. I know she'll either reject me or run away from me." His laughter is a sign of anxiety, an increased sense of reality. These are positive signs, but he still wants to go to this woman. So again, I mirror the contradiction. I want a woman to reject me or run away from me. At this point, he says, It is a distraction from all the sadness over Anne's death." Now I can interpret. I want a woman to reject me so I don't have to face the sadness over Anne's leaving me through death. Here, I point out the function of the denial to avoid the grief over his wife's death. And then he cries. So to summarize, when a patient uses denial per se, remind the patient of reality. Remind the patient of the contradiction between what he desires and the offensive result he knows will happen. We call that reminding the patient of the defense and its price. When he sees how the defense hurts him, it's easier for him to let it go. Once he lets go of that defense, the underlying feelings can rise, so we can help him with his grief. Now, in our next video, we'll take a look at denial through fantasy. And if you'd like to learn how to identify and address these defenses even more quickly, you might want to consider downloading my skill building audio that will teach you how to identify and address dozens of defenses. You'll find it at www.istdpinstitute.com. Until next time, I'm John Fredrickson, and thanks again for visiting us at the ISTDP Institute.